The bench at Willow Street Park. In the middle of a small town where everyone seemed to know everyone else, not just their names, but the sound of their laughter, the shape of their stories, and whether they liked their coffee black or with 2 sugars, there was a park. Not a sprawling, fancy kind of park. Not the kind with fountains that danced to music or playgrounds engineered like amusement rides. It was modest, tucked between a bakery and an old post office with a crooked flagpole. The park had 2 swings, both of which squeaked loudly after it rained, like they were protesting every push. The sandbox was less about sand and more a patchwork of crunchy leaves, forgotten toy cars, and the occasional squirrel that thought it was treasure. The monkey bars were rusted and leaned slightly to one side, daring only the bravest kids, or the most stubborn, to climb them without falling off. But what made the park special wasn't any of those things. It was the bench. The bench at Willow Street Park sat beneath a massive weeping willow, the kind of tree that looked like it held secrets. Its branches dipped low to the ground, creating a hidden nook where the wind whispered and sunlight filtered through like golden lace. The bench itself was old, maybe older than anyone in town. Wooden, worn, and warm in the summer, but cold enough in winter to make you think twice before sitting down. Names were carved into its planks with pocket knives and ink pens, hearts with initials, best friends forever, bold dates no one remembered anymore. One leg wobbled ever so slightly, making you shift your weight if you wanted to read without teetering. And yet, it was familiar. The kind of place that didn't ask for attention. That didn't change when the town did. It was there for the heartbreaks and the quiet victories. The kind of place that knew how to wait. The bench had seen things, felt things. It was where first dates unfolded awkwardly over melting ice cream. Where kids double-knotted their shoelaces before their first soccer game, cheeks flushed with nervous energy. Where parents sat with strollers and secrets, whispering truths too big for kitchen tables. Where grandparents fed pigeons and memory at the same time, smiles soft and slow. But this story isn't about the bench. Not really. It's about the people who found it, again and again. The lonely, the lost, the hopeful, the healing, and the way one old bench came to hold more than just names in wood, but stories in hearts. It started with Sam. Sam was 72, a retired music teacher whose hands still moved like they were conducting something silent. He had a slight hunch in his back, not from burden, but from decades of leaning over piano keys, music stands, and the heads of students who couldn't quite find middle C. His cane, an old knobby thing with a rubber stopper worn smooth, was named Charlie. No one knew why. Sam never explained. But every morning at exactly 8 a.m., like clockwork, he made his way to the bench at Willow Street Park. He came with a thermos of black coffee, no sugar, no cream, a folded newspaper tucked neatly under one arm, and a scarf that changed with the seasons. He never stayed long, maybe 20 minutes at most, but those minutes were his ritual. He would settle onto the bench with a sigh, the wood creaking beneath him in what almost sounded like recognition. He'd sip his coffee slowly, scan the headlines, and hum softly. Not modern songs, old ones. Tunes with forgotten names and long-lost lyrics. Melodies that hung in the air like the tail ends of dreams. He didn't talk much. He nodded at joggers, tipped his hat to passing parents, offered a solemn wave to dogs like they were old acquaintances. And then, when he finished his coffee and folded his paper again, he would stand, always slowly, always carefully, and leave half a sandwich on the bench beside him. Wrapped in wax paper, neatly folded, never touched. At first, people thought it was strange. Maybe it was habit. Maybe Sam was just forgetful. Maybe he liked feeding the squirrels, though no squirrels ever came near it. But then, one Tuesday afternoon, the reason appeared. A boy, thin, small, maybe 8 or 9, wandered into the park. His hoodie hung too loose on his shoulders. His sneakers had holes in both toes. His hands were red with cold, and his eyes were the kind that stayed too quiet. He looked around once, twice, and then made a beeline for the bench. The park was empty. No one watching. no one to stop him. He sat gently on the far edge, like the bench might reject him if he pressed his luck, and reached for the wax paper with hands that trembled just slightly. He unwrapped the sandwich slowly, carefully, as if it might disappear if he moved too fast. And then he ate. Not with greed, not messily, but with the kind of quiet hunger that comes from going without. That evening, no one said a word. But wordless things have a way of echoing in small towns. Because the next morning, when Sam arrived at the park at 8 a.m. sharp, he didn't just have one sandwich in his coat pocket. He had two, wrapped, neatly folded, waiting. Then came June. June was 84, though she'd be the first to tell you age was just a number, and hers was unlisted. She wore oversized sunglasses no matter the weather, big round ones that made her look like an aging movie star or a very glamorous bug. Her scarves never matched her outfit, and her shoes always squeaked, but she didn't care. She moved like someone who had made peace with being exactly who she was. June smelled like lilacs and peppermint, a scent that lingered in the air like the end of a favorite poem. She began showing up at the park every Thursday at exactly noon. Not a minute before, not a minute after. She'd lower herself carefully onto the bench, always placing a folded handkerchief down first, and then pull a worn leather sketchbook from her tote bag like it was something sacred. She'd open it to a blank page, adjust her scarf like she was preparing for a performance, and begin to draw. Not quickly, not aimlessly, with intention. Like each line she drew was tugging on a thread connected to something just beneath the surface of time. She never said what she was sketching. If children ran past, she'd offer them a nod and a smile. If Sam happened to be there, she'd tap her sunglasses and call him Maestro. But mostly, she stayed quiet, her pencil whispering across the page, her thoughts written in silence. Until one breezy Thursday, something changed. A gust of wind came roaring down the hill, one of those sudden, mischievous gusts that feels almost like a prank, and caught her sketchbook just as she was closing it. Pages fluttered out like startled birds, scattering across the park. Children squealed and chased them through the grass. A teenager picked one up and blinked in confusion before carefully returning it. Sam, now a regular fixture of the park, caught another just before it tumbled into the pond. They weren't just sketches. They were stories, memories, etched in graphite and smudged by time. One showed a pair of hands holding each other, one small, one wrinkled. Another depicted a piano bench with a coffee mug perched on top, and musical notes floating above like ghosts of forgotten songs. There was a birthday cake with a single candle, a bench beneath a willow tree, a cane leaning against it. And one drawing, simple, soft, showed an old man and a freckled boy sitting side by side on the park bench, sharing a sandwich. June laughed when she saw them all fluttering in the breeze. Not an embarrassed laugh, a delighted one, the kind of laugh that creaks open doors in people's hearts. "I guess the park remembers too," she said. After that, something new began. The bench, once just a resting place, became a quiet canvas of connection. People started leaving notes, not big ones, not grand declarations, just slips of paper tucked under a corner or pinned by a pebble, scrawled with handwriting both messy and elegant. "You're doing better than you think. The world is softer than it looks. Don't forget, someone is proud of you." They came from strangers, from kids, from old men in coats, from teenagers with chipped nail polish and headphones. Some were folded like origami. Some were written on napkins. One was in crayon. But they all stayed, until the rain washed them away. And even then, more would appear. Soon, the bench became something else entirely. Not just a resting spot, not just a place to eat a sandwich or sketch the sky. It became a kind of secret mailbox, a destination for feelings too big to carry and too soft to shout. A quiet confessional with wooden arms and a view of the willow tree. One day, a girl with scraped knees and chipped nail polish left a folded piece of notebook paper beneath a loose plank. It was a poem about her cat, Luna, who had passed away the week before. The words were simple, a little uneven but full of love. She ended it with, "I hope you're warm wherever you are." A few days later, a high school senior, wearing a hoodie 2 sizes too big and earbuds blaring something angry and loud, tucked a letter behind the backrest. It was addressed to himself, 5 years from now. "I hope we made it out," it read. "I hope we're still kind." Then, one bright Saturday morning, when the breeze smelled like cinnamon and fresh grass, someone left a note on floral stationery. No name, no signature, just 3 words written in soft blue ink. "I said yes." People started checking the bench the way you'd check a mailbox you didn't know you needed. Not always expecting something, but always hoping, a sign, a line. A reason to believe the world still held gentle places. They didn't take the notes. They added to them, read them, rearranged them when the wind scattered them across the grass. And sometimes, more often than anyone admitted, they just sat next to them in silence, letting the words soak into whatever ache they had brought with them. Tears were shed on that bench. Laughter, too. The quiet kind. The kind you don't share with crowds. The town never made an announcement. No plaque appeared. No article in the local paper. But somehow, everyone knew. If you needed a moment, if your chest felt too full or too empty, if the day was too loud or your heart too heavy, you could walk to the park, sit beneath the curtain of willow branches, and let the bench hold a little of the weight for you. Because somehow, impossibly, the bench listened. Then came winter, a bitter one, the kind that bit at your nose and crept into your bones. Snow piled along the sidewalks like thick, silent quilts. The willow tree, once full of life, stood bare and skeletal, its branches reaching downward like frozen arms in mourning. The bench didn't see many visitors at first. Sam stopped coming, just for a while. He'd taken a bad fall on the ice the year before, and the whole town seemed to collectively hold its breath every time the sidewalk glistened. No one wanted another ambulance. No one wanted that kind of silence. And yet, every morning, the path to the bench was shoveled. Not just a narrow track either. A wide, careful clearing, like someone wanted to make sure 2 people could walk side by side. The seat was always brushed clean. The snow always swept from its surface. No footprints gave away the mystery. No name was ever mentioned. But the bench remained ready. Always ready. Then, on Christmas Eve, something new appeared. A basket, nestled gently in the center of the bench, its handle wrapped in a ribbon faded from time but tied with care. Inside were 12 sandwiches, each wrapped in wax paper and labeled with little notes like cheddar plus kindness or PB&J for the soul. There was a wool scarf, hand-knitted in warm earth tones, a music cassette labeled piano for quiet nights, a tiny sketchbook with blank pages and a pencil tucked in the spiral binding, and one final note tucked beneath it all. For anyone who needs to feel remembered. No signature, no clue who had left it. That night, snowflakes danced under the orange glow of the street lamp, spiraling like quiet wishes. The town was mostly asleep, wrapped in warm homes and soft traditions. But near the park, a mother and her daughter walked slowly, bundled in scarves and matching mittens. The little girl stopped. She stared at the bench for a long moment, then looked up at her mother and whispered, "Can I sit, just for a second?" Her mother hesitated, but then nodded. They sat down together, the girl's boots barely brushing the ground, the mother's arm wrapping gently around her shoulders. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. When they stood to leave, the girl reached into her pocket, pulled out a small snow globe, tiny, delicate, the kind you win at a school fair or find in a forgotten drawer. Inside was a miniature piano with a little bench and tiny painted keys. She placed it gently in the basket, and they walked away hand in hand, leaving only footprints and a hush of warmth behind them. Spring returned like an exhale, slow, steady, and full of something soft and aching that had been missing. The snow melted in careful patches, uncovering muddy grass and forgotten mittens. The willow tree, patient and dignified, began to bud again. Tiny green whispers of life that curled from its branches like secret messages. And the bench welcomed them all. Sam came back, slower now. His steps were measured, deliberate, and his cane, Charlie, clicked against the path like a quiet metronome. He no longer brought a full thermos, just a cup. But he always brought a smile. The kind that comes from seeing something you thought you'd lost, still standing. June returned too, wrapped in floral scarves and smelling like spring rain and lilacs. She carried pastels now, softer than pencils, more forgiving, and used her fingers to blend skies and memories onto thick pages. She hummed sometimes, and when she smiled, it seemed like even the willow tree leaned in to listen. And the bench? The bench never stopped listening. More people came. Some were old, some were young. Some came alone. Some came in quiet pairs, hands brushing between them like shy sentences. Mothers sat with newborns, teenagers with headphones, grandparents with forgotten songs tucked in their pockets. Some brought books, others brought sandwiches. One man came every Sunday with a chessboard and always set up both sides. But many, most, just sat. They let the wind speak. They let the branches sway. They let the silence fill the spaces that were too heavy to name. And then, one morning, there was a new sign beside the bench. It wasn't flashy or loud, just a piece of hand-carved wood, polished smooth by calloused fingers and care. The words etched into it were simple, for stories that don't need to be told out loud. No one knew who put it there, no one claimed it, but no one questioned it either, because everyone understood. Some stories live between pages. Some stories float in music or sketchbooks or crumbs left behind. And some stories, they sit quietly on a worn wooden bench under a willow tree, waiting to be felt, not told. Years passed, the way they always do, quietly and then all at once. People grew. Some graduated and left town with dreams folded into suitcases. Some got married, changed their names, moved 3 streets over. Some never left at all. A few returned older, softer. Some didn't return at all. But the bench remained. It stayed through seasons and storms, through births and goodbyes. The willow tree above it bloomed and shed and bloomed again, its branches falling like soft curtains over the stories below. The bark grew thicker, the roots stretched deeper, and still, the wind passed through it like breath through an old lullaby. New names found their way into the bench's worn wood, etched gently between older ones, not to erase, but to join. And the notes? They changed too. Fresh ones appeared when the old ones had faded or flown. Some were carefully laminated, some scribbled in pencil on the back of receipts. Messages of heartbreak, of hope, of healing. One simply said, "Today was hard, but I'm still here." Then one morning, quiet and ordinary, the kind of morning people forget to remember, a child arrived. She was maybe 7, wearing butterfly rain boots splattered with dried mud. Her hair tied into 2 crooked braids that looked like they were done by small hands or in a hurry. Her coat was buttoned wrong, and her socks didn't match. But in her small fist, crumpled and worn, she held a piece of paper, folded so tightly her fingers had left creases in it. She walked slowly, like the weight of the paper was heavier than anyone else could see. She reached the bench, looked at it, and in the softest voice, almost like asking permission, she whispered, "They said this might help." She tucked the note into the space between the slats where the others lived. Not rushed, not scared, just honest. Then she sat, her legs dangled just above the ground. She didn't speak, she didn't cry, she just sat. And in that silence, soft, still, and whole, the world seemed to hush around her. The wind held its breath. The tree stood taller. And when she finally stood to leave, she turned back toward the bench and smiled. Not a wide grin, not a practiced pose, just a small, crooked, deeply human smile. The kind of smile you don't forget. The kind that doesn't say goodbye. The kind that says, I see you. You mattered, and still do. Because sometimes the most powerful stories don't live on bookshelves. They don't need hardcovers or page numbers or perfect grammar. They live in quieter places. They live on park benches, in the spaces between strangers who never exchange names, but still pass something important between them. In moments that don't make headlines, but make healing happen anyway. They live in sandwiches wrapped in wax paper, carefully left behind like a secret handshake. In sketchbooks filled with moments no camera ever caught. In snow globes placed gently in a basket. In folded up notes that say things like, you're not alone. You're doing better than you think. You matter. These stories hum in the background of small towns. They don't ask for applause. They just are. And if one day you find yourself on Willow Street, at the very end of the path, beneath the long arms of a willow tree that sways like it's listening, there's a bench waiting. It won't ask you anything. It won't rush you. It will simply be there. So sit, breathe, let your shoulders drop. Let the noise fall away. Because the bench, it remembers. Every story whispered into the wood. Every tear that landed on its surface. Every laugh, every note, every goodbye and beginning. And maybe, just maybe, it's been waiting for you all along. If this story warmed your heart, please give it a like, share it with someone who needs a smile, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind us how powerful even the quietest moments can be.